Good morning to all the students. Yesterday we started a topic on overloading and we have discussed what overloading means and what are the types of overloading we have. And we have started our concept on overloading, operator overloading. We have seen the introductory concepts related to operator overloading, how we define an operator function, what is the keyword that is used to define the operator function, and what is the syntax, what are the rules to be followed, what operators can be overloaded and what operators cannot be overloaded. All these things we have discussed, right?
Yes, sir.
In today's session, what we'll do is we'll start the concept of overloading, that is operator overloading. We'll start, but we try to give a lot of examples and I will try to explain it with programming examples also. So you please be active so that you can understand and you can able to write the programs on this OOPS also, on these OOPS concepts, right? So please concentrate, and when I start the programming, I request one of you to unmute yourself and be active throughout that program, right? And be active throughout that completion of the program, right? So this is how we are planning for today's session. And let us start our discussion on arithmetic operators, overloading of arithmetic operators. What are the various arithmetic operators we have in C?
Plus minus, multiplication, division.
And we have another thing called multiplication division. Right. So these are the 5 symbols that are used for performing the arithmetic operations on the built-in data types. Right. Yesterday also we have to I discussed that operator overloading is a concept which is defined for user-defined data types. Right. No operator overloading concept for the built-in data type. What is the other name for the built-in data type?
Fundamental data types.
Super. Fundamental data. Give me some examples of fundamental data types.
Integer, float.
Integer, float, char, all these things are fundamental data. So other than these built-in data types, we also have the user-defined data types. Can you give me some examples of user-defined data types?
String.
What is that one?
String functions. Sir.
String is not a user-defined data type. It comes under derived data type. Why? Because arrays comes under derived data type. Right? So we have the derived user-defined data types like the structure, unions in C programming language. Right? So what are the user-defined data types we have discussed in the C++ programming language?
Class is a user-defined data type.
Super, right. You should know that class is also considered as the user-defined data. So what we'll do is we won't bother about how these operators are defined on the built-in data types. This is not operator overload, right? Operator overloading means how these operators can be defined to operate on the user-defined data types like structures, unions, and classes. Since we are not bothered about the structures and the unions in C++, let us define how these operators are redefined so that they can work with the class objects. What are the variables of class?
Data members, sir.
No. Variables means, for example, I have a data type int a. What is a here?
Methods.
No. Int a. A is called the variable to integer data type. Is it right or not?
Yes.
Similarly, I have a class called demo. Demo
Constructors.
D. If I write like this. So what is D here?
Variable. Object.
It's a variable of the class which is nothing but the object, right? So the variables are the instances of the class are nothing but the object. So you have to remember that operator overloading is a concept where we define the definition of the operator such that they work with the objects in the similar manner as they work with the built-in data types. So how they are going to work with the built-in data types in the similar manner, they need to work with the user-defined data types also. For that, we have to write some additional code. That additional code or the functions which we write for these operators are called as operator overload. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So arithmetic operators are the most commonly used operator in C++. We know this thing, and almost all the arithmetic operators can be overloaded to perform the arithmetic operation on user-defined data. That's right. So there is no restriction. Give me 1 minute. So there is no restriction that particular arithmetic operators can only be overloaded. All the arithmetic operators can be overloaded. So you can overload the plus operator, you can overload minus star division and this modular division also you can overload. Right. So after this, we'll start our discussion of overloading the arithmetic operators. So what is the arity of these arithmetic operators? Are they unary? Arity means yesterday I told you that regarding this arity concept. Right? What is arity of an operator?
Precedence or associativity, sir.
No. Precedence and associativity are different. Precedence means the priority of the operator. Associativity means whether they have to be evaluated from the left to right or right to left. That is associativity. Those are different. But in the second point, I have defined the arity of operators will not change.
It tells the unary or binary operators.
Super, right. So when you overload an operator, a binary operator, it still works as the binary operator only. And similarly, when you overload the unary operator, it still works as the unary operator only. So when you overload an operator, you cannot change the arity of that operator. So you cannot make plus to work as the binary operator, and you cannot make plus to work as the unary operator. Right? Plus can be used. Why? Because plus can be used for both the unary as well as the binary operator. Right? For example, you may have doubt. Plus and minus can be used for both the unary and binary operators. Why? Because, for example, if I say A minus B, so in this situation, it is working as a binary operator. Can I write like this minus A? Is it valid or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it is valid. Here we are making the value of A to have the minus value. That means we are putting a negative value, right? So the minus operator can be used as the binary operator as well as the unary operator. So can you say that this minus is already overloaded or not?
Yes, sir.
Since this is in this particular statement, we have made the minus operator to work on two operands, and in this situation, in this scenario, we have made the minus operator to work as unary operator. Okay. So this is how the operator overloading is defined. But remember, I told that this minus is made to work as a binary operator in this situation, and this is made as a unary operator in this scenario, right? But remember that this A and B and this A should be the objects of a class. That means they should be the user-defined data types only. They should be the variables of user-defined data types. For example, if A, B are fundamental data types, then you cannot say that this is operator overloading. Remember one important point, that operator overloading works only, and we should call, it's not works, we should call that it is a operator overloading when we make the operators to work with the user defined data types only, right? So this is how it is defined, right? Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Right. So in this example, we will try to see how we won't bother about what logic they have used, right? We'll see how we can define an operator function, how we are making it to work to work with different user defined data types in the similar way they work with the fundamental data types, right? So please be active, and after this I will try to write a code of complex numbers, right? We'll try. So what is the first statement? Somebody please be active. Please unmute yourself. Hash include IO stream. Why we use this one?
Input output.
Input output, C out and C in, right? What is the use of this conio.h?
Console input output. Sir.
Console input output.h. Here I have used a function called getCH at the end. Can you see the tick mark here?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
The second part, last statement is getCH, right? So this function is defined inside this conio.h. So that is the reason why I'm making use of this conio, but it is not mandatory. You can remove this getCH and you can remove this statement. Right. So somebody may get a doubt that, sir, what is this IO stream? Is it a header file? So if it is header file, it should have the extension as .h. Why I'm not giving the IO stream.h? Yes, IO stream is a header file, but why you are using some GCC compiler? It is not mandatory that you put this .h for this IO stream, right? So we just make it as a hash include IO stream. This is the one important point you should remember here. So, and what about this using namespace std? So this is the namespace where we are, std is the namespace. We are making use of this std. Std means standard, right? We are making use of this standard namespace in this particular program. That is why we are making use of using namespace std. So what happens? What is the use of this using namespace std means? If we don't use, are you listening?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
If you don't use this namespace std, so whatever standard input output functions you are using, that is C out and C in. Standard output function is C out, right? Standard input function is C in. So these functions should be written in this manner. So you should write it as std scope resolution operator C out. That is how you have to write. Similarly, C in, you should write it as std scope resolution operator C in. This is how you should write this C out and C in. So if you don't write this, use this namespace std here, and you write it in the normal fashion that it is C out and C in, then the compiler will raise some errors, right? The error is nothing but you just modify this C out such that it has defined, the C out is defined under this scope, right? Which is under std scope. Is it clear up to this point? What is the use of this namespace std?
Yes, sir.
So to avoid this std scope resolution operator, we just put a statement saying that using namespace std, right? So we are clear about these three statements. And what about this class? What about this one? From here to here. What is this one? What is that I am doing in
Class
this?
definition, sir.
Super, right? I am defining a class. What is the name of the class?
Time.
Time. How many variables, data members I have taken for the class?
3 data members, sir.
What are they? Super. What are they?
H, M, and S.
HMS, sir.
H, M, and S. What is the scope of these variables?
Private scope, sir.
Private. Since why we have not defined any scope for this access specifier for this variable, the default access specifier is private. Therefore, HMS and comes under private. What do you mean by private? Private variables means
It cannot be accessed by other classes, sir.
so the private members cannot be accessed from outside the class. Right, inside the class you can make use of it, right? But outside the class, when you want to access them, cannot access those private variables. We'll try to explain this private variables concept also. Right. Next, what is this public?
Access specifiers, sir.
Access specifier. So from this point onwards, whatever you define inside the class, they come under the public scope. Right. So what is the first statement here? This one.
Parameter constructor.
No.
Default constructor, sir.
Super. It is a default constructor. Please concentrate here. Here I have defined, I have given the definition. You should be careful whether we have given it inside the curly braces or inside the parenthesis, right? So I have defined a function. Is it not? Is it a function or not?
Yes, sir.
Right. So the function name is similar to that of the class name. So such type of functions we have discussed that it is a constructor. Right. So within the parenthesis, do I have any parameters?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No. And when I write the definition of this function, so I have opened this curly brace and I have closed this curly brace. Within these curly braces, I have given the body of the function saying that I am initializing the value of h to 0, m to 0, and s to 0. H stands for hour, m stands for minutes, and s stands for seconds. So what is this constructor called? Is it a default constructor or parameterized constructor or copy constructor?
Default.
Default, right?
Default.
So what is the need of this default constructor? When you create an object of this class, this default constructor is automatically invoked by the compiler and it will make these private members of that object to be initialized to 0. So this is the need of this default constructor. Right? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Now tell me what is this statement?
It's a member function, sir.
It's a member function. Super. Is it the function definition or declaration?
Declaration, sir.
Declaration. Super. Right. What is the other name for the declaration?
Prototype.
Function declaration or
Prototype,
function?
sir.
Super. Prototype. We have another name for this prototype which is called as signature also. But rarely we make use of this term. Right. But you just understand that we have different terminology for this declaration. So function declaration, otherwise called as function prototype, it is otherwise called as function signature. So this is a function declaration. That means I am going to define, I am going to give the definition for this function somewhere outside the class. That is why I have given the declaration. Right. So what about this one, this function? It is also a member function. Yeah, it is also a member function, but I have defined the function inside the class itself. We have discussed that the member function can be defined either inside the class or outside the class. I can make use of anything. It is my choice, the programmer's choice. Right? So show has been defined inside the class and set time I want to define outside the class. That is the reason why I have given the declaration inside this class. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Now tell me, what is this particular statement called? What is the name of this statement? This is called as function declaration, right? What about this one?
Operator overload and declaration.
Right. We can simply call it as operator function. Am I right or not?
Yes, sir.
Right. So what is the syntax of the operator function? Similar to that of the member function only, right? Similar to that of a normal function. So it should have a return type. After that, what is the normal? What is the syntax for the function?
Return type, class name.
Return type, function
No.
name.
I want to. I'm asking you the function syntax. Return type, function
Return
name,
type, function name, argument.
argument list,
Argument
and
list.
then body of the function. Right. Similar to that of this function definition, we also define the operator function. which should have a return type. RT stands for return type. And after that, instead of function name, we just change this function name. That's it. Instead of function name, what you have to use? You have to use the keyword operator followed by the symbol which you want to overload, and the remaining thing is as it is. You give the definition. So instead of function name, we replace the function name with this operator and symbol. That's it. So what happened here? What is this time? Again, come back to this declaration. What is this time here?
Class name.
Class name.
Class name. So what is this function returning? Is it the return type or not?
Yes, sir.
So the first term is the return type. So I have given the return type as time. So what this operator function is going to return is, it is going to return an object of type time. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
That means it is going to return the objects. That's it. So which operator, this is operator is the keyword, and which operator I'm going to overload here?
Addition operator, sir.
Addition operator. So how many arguments it is taking?
One argument.
Only
One,
one
sir.
argument. What is that argument? Is it an object or any fundamental data type?
It's an object.
So it is an object of type. Right, what is the type of this object? Type is nothing but the data type. What data type we have defined in this particular program?
Integer.
No. The data type, the user defined data type you have defined here is the class which you have defined, which is nothing but the type. Right. So this operator function is returning an object of type time, and it also accepts an object of type time. That's the meaning of this particular statement. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now what I have this class with the equivalent. So what is this statement? What is this from this point to this point, here to here? What is that I am doing here?
Defining member function outside the class.
So but I am defining the member function outside the class. What is the name of that function? Set time. Is it accepting any parameters? No. What is the return type of set time? You have to go for the declaration in the class. What is the return
Void.
type? It is void. So I have given the void here, but I should tell that this set time is a function which belongs to the class time. So that is done by making use of this one. Right. So this is a mistake that is done here. What is the mistake? Can anybody tell me?
It should be in camel case, sir.
Yeah, super, right. So I have defined the class name as camel case. First letter is initialized and the remaining letters are in the lower case. So I should make a modification like this. Otherwise, it won't recognize what this time is. So we make it as a capital T, small IME, and the scope resolution operator. So when I write like this, the class name followed by the scope resolution operator, the compiler will come to know that the set time is a function that is declared inside the class time, right? So this is how the information is given to the compiler, right? So this set time belongs to the time class, is given by this time followed by scope resolution. Right? So forget about what he is doing in this particular logic. See out that he is printing a name that enter the hour in 0 to 11, and he is taking the value seen into the H private data member. Again, he is prompting the user to enter the minutes, and he is reading that value inside the M variable, and again he is prompting to enter the seconds, and then he is reading that value inside the S variable of the class type. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Right. So now this is very important. What is that we are doing here? What is that
Calling
we are doing?
operator function.
No.
Defining operator function.
Defining operator function, right? In this particular statement, we are defining the operator function. Right. See, listen. So what is this operator function? What is the name of this operator function? It is nothing but operator plus. Is it right or not?
Yes, sir.
What is the return type of this function?
Time, sir.
Time. What parameter it is accepting? Time. Right.
Time.
So, and I should tell the compiler that this operator plus is a operator function that belongs to time class. So I am using this time followed by scope resolution operator. Thereby the compiler will come to know that this operator function belongs to the time class. Right. So remaining thing is similar to that of the normal member functions only. Right. So since operator function is a member function that we have declared inside this class, and I am going to define this operator function outside the class, the syntax remains as it is, no change. Right. So this is the name of the function, which is nothing but operator plus, and this is the argument which it is accepting. So for this, since we are defining it, we have to give the variable also. We have to give the temporary variable. Right. And this is the return type of the operator function. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Right. So forget about what he is doing here. After completing our program, we will just try to come back again to this program and then we'll try to explain it. Right. So this is how we define. So shall I explain this and shall we proceed to the example, or we'll come back again and try to explain this program? Shall I explain this program?
Yes, sir.
Right. So what is the first statement? He is creating an object T of that belongs to time, right? And he is taking two integer variables a comma b, and here he has taken a is equal to s plus t1 dot s. These statements are very important, right? I will tell you why they are important. So a is equal to s plus t1 dot s. That means whatever value of s, he is adding this t1 s to some s. What is this s? Who, to which object it belongs? That everything I will tell you, right? But remember that a is equal to s plus t1 dot s. This is one statement, and that means he is adding the seconds of two objects. He is adding the seconds of two objects. The first object belongs to s, and the second object belongs to t1. Right. So remember this statement. I will tell. I'll come back again and explain how it is working. And then I am making use of t dot s. What is this t? What is this t?
Object times time object.
New
So
object,
time
sir.
is an object of type time, right? So I
Yes,
am
sir.
making, so when I declare this object, I also have the hour here and minutes here and seconds here. So I am making the t dot s. I am making use of this t dot s such that a modulo division 60, right? So the program what he is trying to do is, whenever we have, for example, let us take seconds. Let us take seconds of one object as 40 and seconds of another object as 40, right? So if I add this 40 plus 40, what is the total seconds I get? 80. Is it right? Right.
Yes,
But
sir.
what I should write is, we cannot have 80 seconds. The maximum limit is 60 only. So the first 60 seconds should be converted into minutes. And what about the remaining one?
Seconds, sir. 1 minute.
Yeah,
30 seconds.
it is 20 seconds, right? So it should be written as 1 minute 20 seconds. This is what he is trying to do, right? So whatever
Yes,
time the user gives, he tries to add them, and if the seconds are more than 60, he is trying to add those many minutes to that corresponding time, and if the minutes are greater than 60, then he is trying to add these minutes to the hours, right? So here he is trying to operate this modular division operator such that he will get total seconds, right? So when I modulo operate like this, 80 modulo division 60, what is happening here? What is the result of 80 modulo 60?
20 reminder operator.
So 20. So is it correct or not? So if I get the result as 80 seconds, I should place in the seconds on. I should place in the seconds variable as 20 only. The value that should be stored inside seconds is 20. So the remaining thing should be, that is 1 should be placed, should be added to the minutes. Right. So is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Now he is taking another variable b, and see what he is doing. Up to here it is clear. Whatever minutes is given, m plus t1 dot m. That means the first object's minutes is added to the second object's minute, and for that we have to add this minute also, which we have access in the seconds. Right. So for that he is doing a by 60. What is a value here? We have a value as 80.
80,
So
sir.
80 by 60. What is 80 by 60?
20.
No, 80 by 60, Amma. It is the question.
One, sir.
So I am adding minutes of first object to the minutes of second object, and I am adding the additional seconds, excess seconds we have added to it. Right. So this is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
So for example, if I give the minutes as 24, minutes 1 is 24 and minutes 2 is 56. What is m1 plus m2? That means minutes of first object plus minutes of second object
80, sir.
is again 80. Right. What
Yes,
I
sir.
should do here? And I should add this 80 and this 1, which I got it in the seconds, right? So 80 plus 1, how many minutes is there? 81. Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now 81, we don't have any 81 minutes, right? The maximum limit is 60 only. So what I am doing is, again I am modulo operating this. What is 81 modulo 60?
21, sir.
21. Therefore this is 21 minutes. And what about the remaining 60 minutes? They are added as 1 to the hour. Is my voice clear or breaking?
Clear,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
So whatever 60 minutes are there inside this minutes variable, I am going to add it to the hours. So for that purpose, to get the exact minutes from this 81, I am making this t dot m as, that means this one. The minute variable of the t object is evaluated as b modulo division 60. Right. So what I will get here? 21. And it is 20. Is it right or not?
Yes, sir.
Let
Yes,
us
sir.
take like 2 hours, 24 minutes, 40 seconds. This is T1. Let us take T2 as 3 hours, 56 minutes, 40 seconds. So these are the two time objects I have taken. 2 hours, 24 minutes, 40 seconds. T2 is 3 hours, 56 minutes and 40 seconds. So we are done with the second. Right.
Yes, sir.
So total should be 80, but since we don't have 80 seconds, I have modulo operated it and the result is 20. Is it right or not?
Yes, sir.
And
Yes,
here
sir.
the minutes is 80, but whatever 60 that we are left in the second, I am adding it here. So it is 81, but I should not write it as 81. So I add the 60 minutes to the hours, and then
20.
the remaining is kept in this one. Right. So I get the result as 21 minutes. Right. Now I have to add these hours. So what he is doing, t dot hours is equal to h plus t1 dot h. That means this is h, that is the hours of t1, and this is t1 dot h, hours of second object. So 2 plus 3, what is that one?
5 plus 1, 6. 6.
5. 5 plus we have 1 minute, 1 hour left inside this minutes, right? 5 plus 1, 6. So this is what he has done. Here we will get 5, and this is 1. So 5 plus 1, And what he is doing, he is asking us to enter the time with 0 and 11 only, in between 0 and 11 only. Okay. So the time should be written which is less than 12. So this is how he is writing. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So here 6th modular division 12. What is that one? What is the result of 6 modular division 12?
0, sir.
It is a reminder.
6 only, sir.
0, 6th modular division 12 means 12 will go with this 6 0 times. Therefore, the remainder is 6. When we use the modular division operator, we will get the remainder, and when we use the division operator, we will get the quotient. This is what you have to remember. So 6 modular division 12 is nothing but 6. So I am going to store 6 inside the h variable of t. So what is the value of h here? It is 6. What is the value of m here? It is 21. What is the value of s here? It is 20.
20.
So I am returning this object, return of t. So what I am returning? I am returning t. T is a variable of type class time. So I am returning an object. So that is the reason why I have given the return type of this function as time. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Now coming to the main function, I have taken 3 variables t1, t2, t3. That means I have created 3 objects. So t1 will have h, m and s. Similarly, t2 will have h, m and s. t3 will have h, m and s. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So what are the initial values of this h, m and s?
0, sir.
Super. Why it has become 0?
We
Because of
doesn't
the
need
default constructor, sir.
So when we create an object, the default constructor is invoked, this constructor will be invoked. And in this constructor, I have initialized the values of h and m and s to 0. So all these values will be initialized to 0. Okay. Now I am entering, I am just asking the user to enter the first time. And how I am reading it? It is read by invoking the function set time of t1. So t1 dot set time, this function will be invoked. So assume that the user has entered the value as 2 hours, 24 minutes and 40. And similarly, I am reading the value from the user, which is nothing but the time of the second object. So t2.setTime will invoke this member function, and it will ask the user to enter the time. So I have entered that 3 hours, 56 minutes and 40. Listen, this is very important. This particular thing is very, very important. Right. So what is this statement here? What is this statement?
operator's function.
No, it is an arithmetic statement, right? Arithmetic statement, expression.
Yes,
Is it right or not?
Yes, sir.
So what objects I am adding here? T1 and T2. As T1 and T2 are built-in data types or user-defined data types?
User-defined data type, sir.
User-defined.
User-defined data type. T1 and T2 are the objects of time, which is a user-defined data type, which is called class. So I am adding 2 user-defined data types with an operator plus, right? So this is what operator overloading is. Operator overloading means we are defining a function, operator function, such that we are making the plus to work with the objects T1 and T2, and I am assigning the value to T3, right? So here, see here, the point what I want to tell you here is, what is this plus? Is it a binary operator or unary operator?
Binary operator, sir.
It is a binary operator. But if you go to this operator function, how many parameters I am accepting? How many parameters I am accepting in this operator function?
1 parameter, sir.
Only 1 parameter. You may have doubt that, sir, here I am operating this plus on 2 operands, but I have given the input as only one operand, right? So how does it work? That is the point we have to understand, right? You can write this program by hearting it, but what this T3 is equal to T1 plus T2. Plus is a binary operator, so I am operating on two objects T1 and T2, but the input that I have given to the operator function is only one operator, one operand, which is T1. Right? This T1 is different from this T1. Don't get confused. So how it is going to work means, as I told that since you are defining the function, as the member function, in how many ways you can define the operator function? 3 ways. Either you can define it as the member function, or the non-member function, or the friend function. Right? Yesterday we have discussed. So when you define the operator function as the member function, the left operand is the object itself. Right? So here the T1 is the left operand. Is it right or not? T2 is the right operand.
Yes, sir.
So while you make this operator overloading, since you are doing this as the member function of this class, there is no need to pass this left operand. There's no need to pass this left operand. The only thing you are going to pass is this second operand, that is the right operand only. Right. So by default, the left operand is considered as the object. And listen, again we'll go back to this statement. A is equal to S plus T1 dot S. Can you see this screen?
Yes, sir.
Can you see this yellow block?
Yes, sir.
So what happens to this? Now tell me, what is this T1? Is it taking the T2 or T1 from this statement? Right. So this T1 is the left operand and T2 is the right operand. Since you are defining the operator function as the member function, the only thing you are going to pass is the right operand. Right. Nothing to do with the left operand. So left operand is automatically taken by the compiler. So for this purpose, what is happening here is T1 will be automatically taken, but T2 is passed to the function. So what happens here? This T1 is nothing but the T2 which you are passing from this function call. This is function call. Right. Where is the operator function call? Here is the function call. Is it right or not?
Yes, sir.
So T2 is passed to the function operator. That means here the T1 becomes T2. Right. Now tell me what happens at this point. A is equal to S plus T1 dot S. What does it mean? It means that A is equal to this S belongs to T1 of original object. This one. Right. So this is equal to T1 dot S plus this T1 dot S. What is this T1? It is drawn from this point. Right. So this becomes T2 dot S. So this is the important point you should remember. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So the entire statement T3 is equal to T1 plus T2 can be written as T3 is equal to T1 dot add of T2. Right. This add is not defined here, but it should be treated like this. Right. So this is the object of T1 is the object of time. Similarly, T2 is also the object of time. Right. So the second object, that means the right hand operand, is passed as the parameter. That is the reason why there is no need to specify two parameters for this operator function. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So after making all the calculation, the result is 5 hours, 21 minutes and 20 seconds. Where I am storing it? Where I am storing this result?
Yes, sir.
In the T. I'm returning this t, and where I am storing the returned value of t is stored inside at this point as t3. Right? So t is equal to t3. That's it. Now I am going to print the output. C of t1 dot show, t2 dot show, and t3 dot show. So here it will get the output as 2, 24, 40, and this I will get as 3, 56, 40, and here I will get as 6, 21, 20. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Right. So this is how the operator function is defined and how we will evaluate this, right? The point which I have discussed in this blue mark, why we are taking only one parameter while we are overloading the binary operator. Binary operator should take two operands, right? But we are giving the input as only one operand. That is the right operand only. The left operand is automatically taken. That's the reason why we are skipping the left operand, skipping the passage of left operand to the function. Right? This point is very, very important. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.